Welcome back. This is Julie Baranek, host of the Seven Figure Builder Show, and I'm here today with one of my favorite friends, Rob Jolles. Hey, Rob.
Hey, good to be here.
Good to be. This is our conversation number two. I'm so excited to have you back. And you are the most brilliant speaker. And today we're going to talk about, I know, put you on the spot, how
I'll
to up
accept that.
your,
I'll
yeah,
honor that title. Let's see if I
as
can
you
prove it to you.
should. I know
Yeah.
you can. How to up your presentation game and just some tips and pearls of wisdom from over 31 years of professional speaking.
31 on my own and 10 more with Xerox. So I've
Nice.
been in the pit, as we call it, for quite a while.
Nice. I love it. Well, tell us a bit, like, what is your bit of your journey, what you've been doing,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to dive in.
Good. Well, from a present, I'm a sales trainer, but if you want to pull the curtain back and look at the presentation side, I actually started as an insurance salesman for New York Life, but within about 2 years and 3 months, and my numbers were good. At one point, I was number 11 in the country of 7,800 agents. So it wasn't because I didn't love selling. It's because I was a 21-year-old selling life insurance to 21-year-olds. I kind of decided I was going to take a walk, and they said, "Don't leave so fast." And they made me a trainer. And that opened up a completely different avenue for me because I actually had done some acting in college. I was raised by a Marine, so we weren't allowed to be actors, but I really loved the acting. I loved that kind of theater, that fix, that energy from a stage. And all of a sudden, as a corporate trainer, I went, "Wow, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that buzz." So, trainer for New York Life, then I became a trainer for Xerox. And I actually had to sell for Xerox for a while, went into the field, but then was the trainer instructor for Xerox. And I went, oh, wow. I put on 1 year, there were 1 week programs. I put 46 of them up in 1 year. So I was almost every
Nice.
week in the
Wow.
pit with I've got to tell you, it's a tough topic because if I teach you how to sell, you're evaluating me on my sales, and you should. When
Mhm.
I teach you how to teach, then and you're falling asleep, or you're not understanding something, or I'm tripping over chords, or the visual isn't right. I'm supposed to model everything I do. So those were like dog years, really putting on the trainers for Xerox, but fell in love with it 31 years ago. I left and I entered this world of professional speaking. And it's like, in a sense, a forgotten occupation. I was a business and communications major at Maryland. I've gone back to the communications school. They haven't heard of professional speakers even as an occupation, and it's been a wonderful occupation, and I love it. And I'll tell you all about it today if you'd like.
I would love it. And for our loyal listeners, you will have seen Rob before because last time we did talk about sales and we had one of my favorite conversations. We had a blast. So I'm thrilled to have you back again and really just get into this whole world of speaking and like why would somebody want to be a professional speaker? Why don't we start there?
Yeah, well, I think it's a natural step. In other words, if I said to you, "How about being a training specialist?" then people go, "Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one."
Mhm.
And that is, and by the way, I wanted to be a training specialist because I really wanted to be a teacher, but
Mhm.
I didn't trust the pay. I
Yeah.
didn't trust. I didn't think I'd be able to make enough money, and raise a family and be a breadwinner. And I just was concerned about the income. If I could go back, a few decades, I might have changed my mind. But I looked at it as, oh, I'll be a trainer so that I can get that acting fix, get in front, teach, but make a little bit more on the corporate side. But to your question, what's the next step from trainer? Well, every now and then we get these people coming in from the outside. I remember right before, there was a very important moment in my life where a guy came in. He was paid a whopping $1,500, which is not much at all for a professional speaker. But
Mhm.
my eyes were, by the way, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
My eyes were wide open, like, wow, $1,500 for an hour. I can't believe it. What does he look like? And as my dad would have said to me, he puts his pants on the same way you do, one leg at a time. Uh,
Right.
we went nose to nose. He went, I went, and we got evaluations from a crowd of about 400, and my evaluations were quite a bit higher. I don't tell you that to brag. I tell you that because a light went off, and I went,
Right.
I think I can do it. I think I can play in a bigger pool. I want to be the guy that goes into that Marriott ballroom with a mic around his neck and wows a crowd. And that's a step up from being a inside corporate trainer. And so I saw it, I tasted it, I felt my numbers looked good, and out I went.
I love that. And for people thinking about, okay, how do you become a speaker? Like we're talking really about keynote speaking, right? Like being professional speaking, keynote speaking, right? That you would be getting
Yeah, but
paid
you know
to be
what?
doing this.
Yeah, except I think that's a blind spot for many people because
Mhm,
you'll find that many people, particularly authors,
mhm,
want to be professional speakers. They can move books that way, but they see it all myopically as keynotes.
mhm.
I really, when I tell you 31 years as on my own, it's rare you'll ever meet anyone that goes that long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just there's a kind of an arc to the career, and it's physical too. But the reason why my career is extended and expanded as long as it has is because quickly I realized that the keynote was just an entry to these corporate accounts. I've worked with Toyota for over 20 years. I work with Disney. I work with
Mhm.
20 different banks. But if all I did was a keynote, not only would I be one and done, even if it was the best keynote they ever saw, they don't want to bring the same
Right.
guy back the next
Right.
year. But why
One
not
trick
take that?
pony.
Right. Why not take that audience of 400? And if we're that good, and I mean, as a professional speaker, you have to be that good. But if you're that good, then why wouldn't we, instead of want to hear an hour of this, why don't we change the culture of the organization and put together a workshop with 20 people at a time and really expand our footprint in there and then figure out how to continue to add value. And that's how, rather than sourcing gigs all the time, we wind up with corporate gigs that can last, 20 years is ridiculously long. Not that I'm not very grateful, but a 5-year relationship is not unusual for a professional speaker who has workshops, virtual coaching sessions, team coaching sessions, follow up seminars, implementation schools. I mean, really surrounds it. So the keynote, although I'm going to say it, but I'm uncomfortable saying it. A keynote's almost like the an infomercial. And I know that sounds terrible to people, but you love it so much you want to buy the frying pan. Okay. But the real business is now let's learn how to use a frying pan. Let's really learn how to cook. All I did was sell you, a spiral slicer. Uh,
Mhm.
and so that's what and when you put all that around it, I think that's one of the ways you get to 31 years at this.
100%. No, and I love that because that's what gives you the stability too. Like it's not, you don't have to chase, to your point, chasing the next gig or being that one trick pony and you've got to do it all these different places. You build the relationship, you have those contracts, and then you have that long-term, the longevity, right, in doing what you love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the speakers bureaus, which, that's another topic, but professional speakers will frequently be repped by a speakers bureau.
Mhm.
And I've got a number of speakers bureaus that represent me, but they scratch their heads. Most speakers bureaus don't do workshops. It's like, what's
Mhm.
that? We're not interested. So it's really wonderful because a bureau, you have to be very careful with the relationship. When a bureau brings me to you, Julie, and I do a job and you go, that was so good, I want 3 more keynotes. The bureau gets a piece of everything that
Mm.
came out of that room. And there's no gray areas. If
Mhm.
you think it's gray, you won't last long in this business. It's a business of integrity. If somebody shook my hand and met me in that meeting, that belongs to bureau too.
Right.
But the bureaus have very little interest in workshops, which I love. So,
Right.
and that's the part where I remember I got my little infomercial in where they went, boy, that guy's good for an hour. And then I can extend the footprint a little bit. So
Right.
keep the bureaus happy and me happy at the same time.
Totally. So share with us the magical question of what makes you good, right? Like what do
Yeah.
you have to do?
What makes you good? What makes you good? Well, I'm not wearing it right now because I'm not delivering a seminar. But one thing you'll notice if you ever see a picture of me online on a stage, if you look real carefully, you'll see a very small lightning bolt on my lapel. I pin
Mhm.
it on every time, and I pin it on to remind myself. Doesn't matter if you've been at this for some decades. This is the first time the audience will see it. You're as good as your last presentation. So pin it on And the lightning bolt stands for energy and enthusiasm. We can get to tactics in a minute, but one thing that we do, a professional will do, is we will kick up that energy and enthusiasm. I call them the great equalizers. And actually, you don't have to be a professional speaker to just remind yourself that nobody expects you to be perfect. You're allowed to drop this and not have that work and be a page short over there. Don't show up with energy and enthusiasm, an audience won't forgive that. Show up with it, they'll forgive almost anything. So the first thing we have to bring is an unbelievable level of energy. I mean, whatever you think is a high level, kick it up a little bit more, because from 100 feet out and 400 feet out doesn't look as big as you think it looks. So over the, without being unauthentic, but over the top on the energy and enthusiasm. And then in terms of content, my son is a comedian. He can spend months and months getting that joke right, getting that routine right. We do too. And but what we learn is we keep refining and refining and refining and tightening the keynote. And so people will come up afterwards and they'll say, wow, I've heard this before, this message. Never heard it quite that way. And I'm thinking, damn right you haven't. It took me years to actually simplify the message. That's what a good writer does. That's what a good speaker does. We say the same thing. We tend to say it in cleaner sound bites. And there's more, but I just don't want to filibuster. But there are some other pieces I can go into, but it's tight on the content. It's tight on that delivery. And all right, I'm filibustering. One more thing. You ever watch the cooking shows, Julie, with chef, what's his name? Who's got all the shows? Ramsay, Gordon Ramsay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I watched a show one time and really something was said that just stuck with me. Guy it was a guest chef. He tasted something. He said, the protein is good. The protein's good. You cook that chicken perfectly. Your sauce is off. And he said, so 75% of the meal is the sauce. We tend to obsess on the protein. We tend to obsess on the content and getting it right, when the sauce is the energy. The sauce is how you involve the audience, the creativity in your questions, the case studies you threw out, the small group exercises, the perfect close, the immaculate opening, all the things you're doing. That's the sauce. You put the protein with the sauce. Ooh, even I'm getting excited.
Love that. And that's what people remember. I mean, there's that saying, right? People, and I'm going to screw it up because it speaks to the saying. People remember what 10% of you say, 10% of what you say. Help me out. 70% of how you make
the other
feel.
90% on how you made them feel,
Exactly.
or whatever that percentage is. By the way, Julie, funny story. I wrote a piece one time. I thought I said that. It just came to me. It's one of those things where you hear a song, but you don't really know that you heard the song. Clearly, I didn't come up with it.
You heard it on this podcast last time. That's
it. Okay. But I thought I came up with it. I was one of these moments where I had this epiphany. I went, oh, you are so good. And I wrote an article about it, and somebody said, they started quoting the people who came up with it. And, note to self, whenever you think you're a genius, Google it real fast, just in case.
Make sure someone else wasn't first.
I had to apologize, but it was a legitimate mistake. Anyway, yes, I love that saying, and I almost came up with it, but I didn't.
Almost. And I already screwed it up. So, but truth be told, it is how you make people feel. And that's what they remember. They don't remember the words or the statistic. They just remember how you make them feel. And that speaks to the sauce and really the magic that you bring and the energy that you bring. And it's very similar to the podcasting world. I mean, if I show up here to talk to you and I'm flat as could be, this is going to be a very boring podcast.
Yeah, but Julie, you did another 200 really well. Great. But this is number 201.
Right.
And this is and we got to keep bringing the heat. We got to keep and to be fair to both you and me, because we're both podcasters. The heat is what we can control, which is our energy and our enthusiasm and our preparation. And yet, if we do 100, one of them was the best and one of them was the worst, and 98 are in the middle. But let's make a deal, you and me, and anybody who's listening. It'll never be because we didn't give it everything we had in the tank. That's the agreement we got to have with ourselves. And if we can shake hands with ourselves and say, I gave it everything I have, good. It was number 43 on the list, but it
Mhm.
wasn't because I phoned it in or I just didn't feel like prepping that day. Or, no, control what we can control.
Yeah, and actually, I think that goes back to what you were saying with your lightning bolt, which I love, is the mental check-in, the mental preparation of getting your head on straight, right? Like I know I've done podcasts and something's happening in my house and I'm distracted and like I can feel it. I hope the audience, I'm sure they do feel it, but in my head, I'm like, okay, stay focused, stay focused, stay focused, because I'm trying to do my very best. But I think when we take that moment and just check in with ourselves, then you can really do a much better job at being fully present, right? What do you
I
find
think
with
that's so
that?
smart. I think that's so smart. It's why I mechanically go through the
Mhm.
process of pinning it on because I don't want to forget. And people go, how do you forget? I think about it for a moment. Have you ever watched a sporting, gone to a sporting event? I went to a Caps game last year. The tickets were not cheap, and it was and the parking wasn't cheap and the food wasn't cheap, and we got a souvenir over here and a thing over there. It was well north of $1,000 to go
Yeah.
see the Caps play, and they lost like 4-0. Okay, it was one of those days. But the interview afterwards, they person after person, player kept going, just didn't have it tonight. We just didn't have the energy tonight. And I thought, damn. First of all, I wish you'd called me and said,
Right.
"Hey, guess what? We don't have the energy tonight. It might not
Come
want
back
to tell."
tomorrow.
Yeah, I find that unforgivable. How about we gave it everything we had? It didn't come together for us tonight, but it wasn't due to a lack of effort and preparation and energy, and we laid it all out on the ice there. But it just didn't go away. That's much better for me. Don't tell me just didn't we just didn't have it today.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. And that's why we do things like that are mechanical to say, I can't forget. Because we can do something hundreds of times. You can forget. So
Mhm.
let's do something to remind us.
Yeah. And I would say that tends to be more forgivable of like, I gave it everything I had and it just didn't happen. Okay, fine. Versus
Okay with that.
I wasn't
Yep.
feeling it.
Yep. Puck didn't bounce our way. I
Right.
almost wanted to write him a script. Here, I'll give you 9 other ways to say this.
Right. Don't ever say that
But
again.
I'm still looking at my bank account going, the hot dog was good.
Right.
The guy
How
that
did it make you
made the hot
feel?
dog gave it all he had. Thank goodness.
Right, exactly. So as you're looking for those relationships, those opportunities, how do you find your audiences? How do you find the right ones, right?
Yeah, that's the tough part. And even the right ones is tough because sometimes we get hungry for business. Doesn't even have to be a speaking profession. We get hungry and we bump into a prospect that probably our spidey senses are saying stay away from, and we don't listen. We listen when we're flushed with business. But I digress. Sorry, I slipped to the sales side on that one. How do we find gigs? Well, first of all, I think for anybody who wants to start in this profession, one approach I might suggest, and there's many approaches, but there's an organization called Vistage. Have you ever heard of Vistage?
Mhm.
Okay. And Vistage is not going to make you wealthy as a speaker. I'll just tell you that the pay for a Vistage speaker is about, and I'm telling you the numbers here a little bit, about 1/15
Mhm.
of what you would get on a professional gig. Why would I take a Vistage gig? And for those who don't know Vistage, it's an organization of small to mid-level CEOs that meet in chapters all over the country and world. And if you're approved, you get in their catalog, they'll hire you uh, for very little. But let me turn the question around and say, well, I'm getting going as a speaker. And what if I said, here, I'll pick up all your expenses. I'll give you a stipend of some sort, and I'll put you in front of 10 to 15 small to mid-level CEOs, and I'll give you 3 hours. You remember, now let's make our definition of professional speaking the right one. It's not that we did a good job or even a great job. We always want to have the mindset of, I'm going to show you something you've never seen in your life. I'm going to have you lean back in your chair and go, what in the world was that? If we can make that happen, then it's numbers of I've got 15 people. There aren't one or two that say, I want to bring that person to my company. And the beauty of Vistage is that all the people in that room know if you bring this speaker in, multiply it times 15
Mhm.
or so. And so it's a prospect pool. I think I don't want to just hit on Vistage too hard, but the reason why I like something like that is I go back to my son, the comedian. You know, comedians go to open mic nights.
Mhm.
They work out material. They tighten their presentations up. And so, you know, my son gets some corporate gigs. When he does, got to be right. Don't want to be trying out a new joke on,
Right.
you know, with the one that's
That's
paying you 50
risky.
times more. Right. So, as an example, now there are others, but that's to me a real simple way of perfecting your material, building your prospect stream, you know, and getting some
Mhm.
prospects into that pipeline.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. And then from there, you can continue to build on it and hopefully get more referrals
Exactly.
and all of that.
Exactly.
So to your point about material, though, there's a million things you could talk about. Like, how do you decide this is the right message for that key opportunity?
Yeah. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why I love this question is because we can also just sort of sneak into the biggest mistake that 99% of people, even the pros, even me occasionally make. But I'm loading this one up big. I'm saying 99% of the time, same problem, yes. And the problem is too much information.
Mhm.
Okay. The mirror doesn't talk back. We're looking at it on paper and we're going, I'm going to speak for 3 hours and I have 3 pages.
Mhm.
That can't go for 3 hours. Well, it can and it will. And so most people are battling the clock. They're so nervous they're going to go short. They almost always go long. Audiences don't like going long. Um, so we got to be really careful of how we fit material in. Another reason why I like a Vistage. I'm not trying to lose a room, but I'm saying it's not the end of the world if I had, it got a little clunky in there in terms of my timing. Uh, I think what we do is for most professional speakers, we typically are writers. We got to be a subject matter expert, and so be it right or wrong, most of us when we write a book, we wake up in the morning when a book's published, and people go, "Oh, he's an expert on thumbtacks. Wrote a book
Right.
on thumbtacks." Well, no, I'm really the same guy I was before I went to bed last night, but okay, that's what the world says, and I'm going to accept that. We get a book, then we begin to look within that book, and we figure out how can we shape the shot a little bit. I'd have to look at material to go deeper in, but I'll tell you this: whatever presentation somebody puts together and brings in front of me, I usually chop it in half, if not by 2/3. Because what am I doing with the other half to 2/3? I'm putting activities in. I'm letting the audience not hear about swinging a golf club, but put it in their hand and play a couple holes with me. And the more, just like selling, the more the client talks, the more they like us. Guess what happens in a presentation? The more the audience talks, the more they like the speaker.
Right.
So we don't crowd the material, take our best shot out of the gate, and we really fill it with lots of activity and lots of movement.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And then what does your practice look like? And I'm having flashbacks to I forget if we talked about this or not, but I'll share it anyway. When I was in my corporate career, I remember climbing up the corporate ladder, and at one point I was um offered a presentations course, right? Like someone, and for me it was like, why do I want to do this? But okay, fine. And then I did a second one, which was executive presentations, right? And I had no idea how much I would use this for literally the whole rest of my life so far, right? So,
Right.
but you learn to practice, and like I would literally stand there and go through my entire spiel before I would, of course, get in front of an audience. So, what does that process look like to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You got to take your best shot at it. I get it. I'm almost all, it's all about timing with me. Okay. I'm never worried, will I know what to say? I can muscle my way through it. Most of us can. But so if I could, I'm going to answer it two ways. I'm going to say one, take your best shot out of the gate. Forget putting a family on a couch. It's not going to work. Eyeball it, try and figure it out. I tend to break it up. Even a keynote, I'll break it up into quarters. Where am I supposed to be 15, 30, and 45
Right.
minutes into this thing? 3 hour workshops, the same thing. 1 day workshop, where should I be before lunch? The beauty of doing that, and let's just talk about a keynote about 1 hour. Beauty of doing that is um, we are in constant contact with the clock in a sense. What happens with most people, and we've all seen it happen. This is what an amateur will do is they'll have a handout and they'll go, they'll look, and all of a sudden, this terror will strike them. 10 minutes to go, and they go, "Skip page 7. We don't need 8 or 9 either. Go to 14." Okay, uh, you know, I'm going to make an analogy. Obscure, but have you ever been in a hot air balloon?
I have.
Okay, me too, just once. Uh,
Mhm.
but do you remember how the hot air balloon flew? It doesn't fly straight. They give it heat, it goes up. They take the heat out, it still goes up a little more, and then it begins to ease itself down. And it goes past that middle level, and then they give it heat, goes down a little bit more, and then starts working its way up. It's not a straight line. Think like a hot air balloon, okay? Meaning, where are we at 15 minutes? Oh my goodness, I'm 5 minutes ahead, or I'm 5 minutes behind. I'm adding heat, I'm taking heat out. I'm bringing us back in so that at 30 minutes, I've got a realistic way of if I'm going way too fast, slow down. Ask questions of the audience. Why don't you take a try at this thing? There's lots of ways of slowing it down. Now I'm looking at 30. Where's the balloon? Ooh, now I'm running a little bit slow. Okay. Now I'm going to ease it out. And that way it's not a straight line, but at 55, 58 minutes, we're not telling people to skip pages. We're not rushing and speaking quicker. We are easing it in. So when you see a pro and it's 60 minutes, we finish at 59 minutes and 59 seconds. We tend to. And believe me, the professionals, they got meeting planners. There are other speakers before and after you.
Right.
You can't screw around with time. So if I can get the timing right, Julie, the words will just come with repetition. A lot of it is eyeball it, have a plan for timing it, finish it properly, and now keep assessing. I've given presentations 300 times. I still keep a journal. I'm flying home. I'm out in Chicago on Monday and Tuesday. I will be on my journal Tuesday evening, figuring out best 2 parts of it, maybe what 1 or 2 things I do differently. Keep perfecting it. Keep working on that sauce.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what's funny is I personally do that with podcasting. I imagine you do the same of like the milestones. I know I need to be X, we'll keep talking until X point and then bring it back around to wherever
Yeah.
I want to land.
You've
Yeah,
been in a hot air balloon. That's why you know how this works.
I
You
do.
know
I
it's not a
do.
straight line.
I do. And what would you say are the skills that are most, I'll say important, but the most critical skills that you need to have to be able to be a professional speaker?
Well, one of them is here's and I love questions like this because I'm just coming where what's hitting my head.
Right.
One of them is I mean this. You're looking at me. I'm a little older than you might think I am, but I pride myself and I probably don't look as old as I am because I work out like a knucklehead. This is a physical occupation. You have to, sometimes some weeks are much tougher than others. I've been in 5 cities in 5 days, giving
Wow.
5 one-day workshops. Not like I'm coming in for an hour,
Yeah.
coming in late, getting up early, bam, do it again. Moving luggage up and down, on and off. Once or twice sounds easy, but just keep putting it in the Ubers and lifts. You have to be in physical shape.
Mhm.
So one is train like an athlete so that when that audience sees you, you don't run out of gas. And again, I'm not really going to run out of gas in a keynote, but wouldn't it be interesting to see an audience when at 3:30 and you're still moving and firing? I don't. I used to be a runner. I still run a little bit, but there's a marathon pace. There's a 10-kilometer pace. There's a sprinter's pace. You can't run a sprinter's pace, and go 26 miles like that. So we pace it out a little bit, but part of it is really understanding that this is almost an athletic career. We get that. Then the second thing I think is just a drive to always want to improve. Always, it's never perfect. It's never, and that doesn't bother me. I'm not upset. I'm not looking to be perfect. I don't think perfection is relatable anyway. I don't think the audience wants me to be perfect. They want me to be authentic. So if I'm in good condition, I'm not gasping for air. I'm not forced to sit down to catch my breath. If I can maintain the energy and be willing to keep perfecting my message, find one more word, and real fast, but when you're in front of an audience, you'll say things that are almost meaningless. It's almost like putting a tomato into a can. But I'll see the audience go sort of light up when I go
Uh-huh.
tomato can.
Note to
Immediately
self.
walking over lectern and going. And another thing while I'm writing tomato and can down is because it's like a dream. You don't want to tell yourself during a presentation, but I'll remember it at the end.
Right.
All you remember is like the dream. I had a really good dream. I just don't know what it was. I had a
Right.
really good thought. So take notes. It's okay. That's why I like a lectern up there. I don't stand behind it, but I take certain notes and keep looking for what's resonating with that audience and look for what isn't resonating. Sometimes we get up there and we go, not only are they looking bored, I'm bored with me right now.
Right.
Yeah, I got to find a better way, a smarter way of doing this. Let's just keep perfecting the sauce.
Definitely. Yeah. And that ties in with reading the room, right? Like I love that it's important to read the room, whether are people resonating with, what are they not, and be able to help that perfect things as you move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you shared a bit of your secret sauce with us, but what is like that one thing that you wish that either people would know or that's just like mind blowing for you?
It may be, and this is kind of sounds nebulous, but it may just be the pursuit of authenticity. Remember how you said, it's not how you make you, it's how you, what they remember about you. It's how you made them feel. One of the things they want to do is they want to feel like you're authentic. We won't get political in here, forget red and blue or whatever, but we all know that Biden had a bad debate. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, the part of it was that we just didn't, it was a lack of authenticity. In other words, we felt like even though there isn't a teleprompter, there might as well be one. And it's a shame because he's so much better than that. And he just, whatever reasons, could be medical, could maybe not be. I don't know. I just know that as a speaker, that audience it wants us to be authentic. So how do you become authentic? I mean, what do you take a vitamin for that? I think you have to trust yourself. I think we have to stop being so hard on ourselves and realize that the audience again just wants to see somebody honestly giving them what they have. So, content, I get into the protein, be creative with your questions, ask more opinion and case study questions, relay questions when they're asked at you. There's techniques all over the place. When you get a question, don't be in such a hurry to answer it. Well, maybe relay it to somebody else. Well, we've got keep involving that audience. There's tactics all over the place. But to your question, I think if somebody says, I'd like to have a cup of coffee with that woman or that man. I just feel a connection. Uh, that's what I want my audience to feel. And to get there, I have to have a level of comfort that feels like you're in my living room. We're, uh, who is it? Carol King. Do you ever see a Carol King concert?
Mhm.
Okay. I actually saw the living room tour, it was
Oh
called.
yeah.
They set the stage up like it was her living room. And
Oh,
you know
that's
what? It was
awesome.
brilliant. It was brilliant because quickly it became, you almost felt like you were in her living room. I mean, she with her, it's not just her song, and her voice isn't perfect, but it's authentic, right? And that stage wasn't a whole lot on there, but there was a nice rug and a coffee table, a couch over here, piano over there. And quickly you've lost sight of the fact that we're not really in her living room, but I feel like we are.
Yeah.
I want an audience to feel like they're in my living room. And so I'm not trying to show them how smart I am. I'm trying to identify with them and be compassionate with them and empathize with them, um, and and be as relaxed as I can up there. And that comes from repetition, and that comes from practice, that comes from trusting ourselves. But it's a big question you're asking. I think, like I said, I could rattle off protein. I can rattle off some um, sauce moves, callbacks, things like that. But I think at the end of the day, it's just, can you get to a place where you're comfortable on that stage? And I will tell you, I'm more comfortable in front of 500 people I don't know than three people at a corporate dinner the night before.
Mm,
Where
yeah.
I hate those. I do. I feel like a Michael Jackson. I have to put on my white glove and have a steak, or a salad or whatever we're having. I'd rather just eat. But on that stage, that's magic. Let's keep appreciating that too. Last, I know I'm going on, but I remind myself what a gift this is. Not my gift, the gift of, I've got a crowd out there of 20, 200, 2,000. They want to hear what I have to say. Maybe if we remind ourselves what a blessing that is, we can get to that living room. But so it's in the head. It's in the head.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I love, the authenticity. And I think that's why we hit it off the first time we
Yeah.
chatted, and why we're here again is just that genuine connection and just the genuine energy. And yeah, just really being true to who you are, and that confidence, that energy comes through 100%. So I love that. As my
Yeah.
dogs are playing behind us, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to,
I see
very
that.
hard to ignore them, but
Yeah. I have a cat here that can sense a podcast. She can smell one. So I have to keep her downstairs because she will literally start pulling on my shirt
I'm
as I'm
sure.
speaking. But I
I'm
get cat
sure.
bomb now and then up here. I,
There
I,
you
I know what
go.
that's like.
For the video people, I'm getting puppy bombed. Yeah, totally. But where can people find you online? Tell us how they can find you, how they can book you, and just learn from you.
Thank you. It's JOLLES.com. That's my last name. And you'll find, I write articles and podcasts. I do have a program that I'm excited about, that it's the first time I'm ever going to deliver it, but it's going to start in late September. And it's 5 Fridays of basic how to become a professional speaker, the sourcing of gigs, the negotiating, the contracts, the business side of professional speaking. They don't teach it in school. There's really no books on it. But 1, 2, then comes the protein is the third session. The sauce is the fourth session, and then we got to play a couple holes of golf together. I want to see some speakers speak and really get in there and fine tune. But it'll be, and you can just go to the website and contact us, and we'll tell you all about that program. But first time I've ever done one like this. I'm normally a corporate guy, just sort of bought and sold by corporations, but these butts in the seats, or bits as we call them, I'm sourcing myself. So I'm
Yeah,
excited about it.
awesome. And we'll have the links for everybody to come check it out. But that sounds amazing, and being able to learn from you and all your expertise and personality and everything else. So I think that sounds amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you, Rob, for being on today.
I always enjoy it. I do. Something you hit on, you said something right at the end there. It made me smile. Um, I don't do a whole lot. I run a podcast. I don't get on a whole lot of podcasts, but I got on yours, and then I got on I want to be on a second time, because I do appreciate authenticity. We tend to want to kind of hang out with people that we can identify with, and I do appreciate the fact that you are a very authentic person, and I'm not just blowing smoke your way. I'm telling you, I just we can hang around with who we want to hang around with. I like people that are authentic. So
Thank you.
cheers to
And I
you.
do as well. Thank you so much. I love that. So I will be excited for a third time, because I want to hear all about your speaker gig. So we'll book that later. But yes,
Good.
no, I always love chatting with you, Rob. So thank you for being on.
Enjoy it as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and plug your podcast. Where can they find your podcast?
Oh, well, it's called Pocket Size Pep Talks. Go figure. But you can find, Spotify, all the places will carry it, and including, we put them on the website as well. So you just stick with that JOLLES.com thing. You should be able to get me from all kinds of different angles,
Perfect. And we'll
whatever
have
that
that
means.
link too, for sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, if you found value in this episode, please do share it. And That's how people find us. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com. And I will see you on the next episode.